da informação e comunicação, implementação de pontos de troca de tráfego local na internet, projetos que contribuem no desenvolvimento global da web e muito mais. Tudo isso porque o IX.br é uma entidade civil de direito privado e sem fins lucrativos, que mantém uma estrutura de registro de domínio segura, estável e de confiança, e reverte parte do que você paga pelo seu domínio no desenvolvimento de infraestrutura, trazendo benefícios para todos que usam a internet no Brasil. Toda essa inovação, tecnologia de ponta, segurança e infraestrutura só é possível porque você tem um domínio .br. IX.br, sempre em busca do melhor para a nossa internet.
Já imaginou se você não tivesse seu direito à liberdade de expressão respeitado? Se seus dados particulares fossem divulgados sem autorização? Ou se você tivesse sua navegação filtrada por causa de interesses comerciais? A liberdade de expressão, a privacidade e a neutralidade da rede são fundamentais para a internet. E esses são apenas alguns dos 10 princípios formulados pelo Comitê Gestor da Internet no Brasil. O CGI.br promove há mais de 20 anos a internet no país. Graças a ele, você tem constante inovação, segurança e diretrizes para o desenvolvimento da internet. Isso tudo é feito de forma colaborativa, transparente e democrática. O comitê é formado por representantes de todos os setores da sociedade. Assim, as decisões são tomadas por meio do diálogo, com a participação de todos os membros até que um consenso seja alcançado. Por esses e outros fatores, o modelo brasileiro de governança se tornou referência no mundo todo. CGI.br, por uma internet cada vez melhor no Brasil.
Hello there, this is Steve Crocker.
Olá, Brazil! This is Nina from the internet.
Olá a todas e todos.
So happy 30th anniversary.
Congratulations on this historic 30th anniversary.
Muitos parabéns pelos 30 anos.
So congratulations on all of the enormous achievements of CGI.br in the last 30 years.
Muchas felicitaciones y muchas gracias por todo el apoyo.
Bom dia.
Good morning. You are all mostly welcome to our third edition of IX Forum Fortaleza. I would like to invite our opening session panelists, Renata Miele, who is the coordinator of the Steering Committee of Internet in Brazil, CGI, CGI.br, David Góes, who is Innovation and Business Manager for ITC, and Júlio Sirota, who is a manager engineering for IX.br. And now I would like to hand over to Renata Miele for the official opening remarks. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to Moreiras for having invited me to participate. I'd like to greet Julio and David. This is my first opportunity at IX Forum, and to CGI, all these discussion panels where we are able to address all the technical internet matters is key. I don't know if everyone who is here today knows that CGI is just celebrating 30 years. We have 3 decades of hard work for the development of an open and free internet to all, internet of quality and resilience, so their users may have their best experience and use the internet and its application in favor of social, cultural, and economic development of the Brazilian society. And 30 years ago, one of the first initiatives on CGI was to organize and to approve resolutions which would define the management of technical internet layer. CGI allowed .br to raise IX.br and all other departments in charge of managing .br, defining domain names, registry, strategies. Today, Brazil has a very well organized structure. Our second level is closed, which allows higher level of security and users' reliability in the use of internet, as well as the PTTs, the IX, as we call them today, internet exchange points. We have 38 just in Brazil, one of the largest in the globe, and we have been collaborating to fulfill the mission which we had established since the very beginning, which is to allow internet of quality to our end users. So each and every one of you who are here today, Moreira's teams, Julio's team, and everybody else who is here today, you are all responsible for that, to allow our Brazilian internet to be the best in the world in terms of resilience, redundancy, reliability, which is a matter of great pride to all of us. And unfortunately, economic and political interests in our country, they are undergoing a quite complicated phase where we are facing challenges as how we are going to keep the infrastructures, both CGI and INC.br, and stakeholders, those players in the technical layer should collaborate so we are able to communicate to the society our role within this digital ecosystem, which is key and which has to be defended. That's exactly what we are doing right now, trying to dialogue to the society and explain what we do. And once again, thanks, Moreiras, and I wish you all a fruitful event. Thank you. Thank you, Renata. David Góes, you have the floor. David is from IX Fortaleza. Good morning, Moreiras, and good morning to all participants. It's a great honor to share this panel with Renata and Siroca. And congratulations, Renata, for the 30 years that CGI is celebrating. In Fortaleza, we have the PTT, IX.br, and Fortaleza is an important hub because of our location. We have 16 under cables, submarine cables. And the fact that we are here together with a number of experts is key. In addition, the INC.br to organize events like this forum where we can get together with a number of experts where we are all able to give our suggestions, make our comments, complaints, whatever we can do to improve internet governance in our country. And you guys are key here to allow internet to get to households, private sectors, private security, education, health. So we are all responsible for that. And I'd like to clap to everyone who is here today, because thanks to us, big round of applause to everyone. Thank you. This is my second IX Forum. The first opportunity was in São Paulo, and now I am in Fortaleza, my hometown. ITC, my company, is a public company. The state governor is are the main shareholders, and we work throughout the cloud and telco. Our digital belt covers 6,000 kilometers. I'm not going to go into details about that. Later, I'll go into more technical aspects. But once again, thank you all. Welcome to Fortaleza. Those who are visiting Fortaleza, take a stroll along the seaside, visit our central market, buy some cash nuts, which is very typical from our city. And if you'd like to visit our headquarters, feel free. Thank you. Thank you, Moreiras. Thank you, David. Big round of applause. And next, Júlio Sirota, who is IX.br engineering manager. Thank you all for being here today. It's great to be participating in our third IX Forum, this time in Fortaleza. And yesterday, I was thinking about this opening session and what would be my home take message, which is we are not very good at marketing, we might not state very clearly what we do and how we do it. And Fortaleza is a case, Fortaleza illustrates that. I remember around 2016, Milton, myself, Moreiras, we are talking about the Northeast region, such as Fortaleza. Fortaleza has to grow. It's useless to have submarine cables going through Fortaleza, and we don't take the best of the region. So we started a slightly work talking to a number of players, to the state government of Ceará state, introducing some ideas and perspectives of what we could install and implement in Fortaleza. And after a couple of years, here we are. We feel so proud to see that those minor actions back then, they became a reality. Some thanks to our direct influence, and others because we were right at that time. Our reasoning was correct. And here we are years later. And that encompasses both North and Northeast region. We are going to have an exclusive panel which will address this interconnection between regions. And it flows to the coast of Northeast, especially Fortaleza city, but who knows, we may include some other cities in the region that will be able to implement the submarine cables, underwater cables. So it looks like a Lego, those little parts, those pieces that now are being built together, and now we have something more concrete. The PTTs, they are our support. They are a set of tools to help us to support other Brazilian networks, especially around here in the northern and northeast region. We have to have a presence, an effective presence. And by that, we are talking about two cities. Santarém in Belém, up north, is one of them. And the second one with the underwater cables, I don't remember the city name, but anyhow, somebody will later. And these are the sites where we have to work and improve. So let's take the best of this event because we have a number of legal pieces present here today. So we have to put the puzzles together, and as a team, we will have to solve some issues. So within 5 years, we'll be able to get back and get a great data pathway coverage in the northern and northeast regions, which are still lacking of some additional improvements. That's it from my side. I wish you a good event. Thank you, Julio. So this is the third IX Forum Fortaleza, which is officially opened. I would like to thank you all, and let's keep going. But before anything else, big round of applause. Before we proceed to our first panel, let me thank our sponsors, ConnectWay, NZMnet, Major for IT, SAGI Networks, and a number of talks, technical talks, protocols, but we are going to also have some discussions addressing internet infrastructure, especially the infrastructure implemented in this region, north and northeastern, 6 gigahertz, and the use at Wi-Fi 7. We are going to also discuss about IP blocks, URLs blocks, in advocating for more security. So we are going to have a number of discussions in addition to the technical speeches, technical talks that we are going to have throughout the day. Shall we then invite the first panel? But let me ask you, well, this event has been broadcasted in the YouTube. Those of you who would like to advise some colleagues or somebody else from your company who couldn't make and would like to follow, just access IX.br YouTube video links that will be recorded. The same link where people are following us live, that link will be available in the YouTube right after the event for a while. So the link for today's and tomorrow's event, you have to access different links for the morning session, afternoon session, and tomorrow 2 different links for morning and afternoon session. And the event is being broadcasted in English, because this is an event which we would like that foreigners would be able to follow and to learn more about Brazilian internet ecosystem, Brazilian market, internet Brazilian market, because our IXP in Fortaleza is the second largest in Brazil, which favors our endeavor and actions. So we would like to communicate abroad, internationally, our discussions. So those who are abroad and who would like to operate in Brazil also can learn that São Paulo can be a great entrance point, but to have a good Brazilian coverage, São Paulo is not the only hub to be connected with. And those who are following us remotely in the YouTube, please, could you give us a feedback over the chat about the quality of our video, audio? Some people were complaining about the volume of the audio. Has that been corrected? Is it any better?
A qualidade do vídeo e da transmissão já estão excelentes. Então, obrigado ao pessoal da técnica aí no fundo que está tornando.
So thank you the technicians who made that possible.
Okay.
With the proper adjustments. Well, after all these housekeeping messages, let's go on to our first event panel, which is Norm 4 and the importance of separating the internet and telecommunications. And once again, I'd like to invite Renata Miele to join us. She is the coordinator of CGI.br to be the moderator of this panel. I also would like to invite Carlos Afonso from NUPEF as one of the panelists, and Flávia Lefreve from Moraes Law Firm. They are former members of the CGI. And now I'd like to hand over to Renata Miele. Thank you, Moreiras. Good morning again. I am so honored to moderate this panel with two distinguished members in the field of technology, internet, but not only people who fight for a more fair and egalitarian country. Carlos Afonso, CA, as he is known, is an entity in this field, and Fábia Lefreve, both former CGI members. And you are here today to discuss about the relevance of Norm 4 and the importance to keep within our framework the separation between internet and telco. This is a topic that CGI is following for a while. That's not the first time where we try to overrule Norm 4. The CGI has released a note, I believe a well-positioned note, and the norm is not it's not just a wish of the federal government representatives. It is a way to reflect the structural separation that we see in the service which is delivered. Even technology has evolved. The fact that the same company delivers the same service doesn't mean that there are not two different services and the need to split both layers. So each one of you who didn't have opportunity yet, search for CGI website note, and if possible, give us your feedback. Now, Sia, you have the floor. And Carlos Afonso, he always go back in time to talk about the importance of this separation. Thank you, Carlos Afonso. Good morning, everyone. It's important that Flávia comes after me because her presentation is amazing. I will just make a brief introduction. The norm 4 dates back from 1995, LGT 97. They review inappropriation of the process. How is it possible that the General Law of Telecommunications would be published 2 years after the foundation of CGI.br, and the norm defining the separation between internet and telco, and the word internet does not show up in the LGT 2 years later, which was approved 2 years later. Sergio Mota, the same one that participated of creation of CGI and the norm for LGT, would have probably, if they had led that more clear and not to be under the services of others. To remind you, the LGT pieces, Flavia will go into details about that, and I don't need to repeat that. In 98, the General Regulation of Intercommunication, RGI, was founded. So companies that were a consequence of the privatization were able to meet regulatory standards to connect their networks. But before that, all the telecom services, they were under one single state company, which was Telebras, and they were just a company. Such an interconnection is defined based on the interconnectional general regulation in such a way where they define the link between interconnections of these networks in such a way that network users will be able to communicate to users to the services of other networks or even to access available services. They regulate the interconnection of telco infrastructures and not added value of services which make use of that same infrastructure. And they set rules to mitigate price dispute among telcos. Who will pay to whom, how much, and what once a network call is made to another network users. It also establishes that all telco networks, they should be interconnected, but they do not mention anything about internet in their regulatory documents. The civil legal framework is an amazing, exceptional a record about rights and duties in the scope of internet. They do not mention telecommunications. The only thing they mention or the word that they use is Anatel, which is an added value known as internet with capital letters. I always write and say internet in capital letters because I'm referring to the large internet. An internet is any network that uses TCP, being private, small or large, which not necessarily is interconnected to others. But internet with capital letters is the internet that we know and which we are all here discussing about. Let me ask you, if norm 4 is irrelevant, how come people are so much worried about interrupting it? If the norm 4 requires an update is another option, but to rule that out as being obsolete without any pluralist discussion as how we may guarantee the separation between telco infrastructure and this mentioned value is not acceptable. I am afraid of touching that where the civil framework and approval by Dilma is under risk. Under risk since the where one of the main enemies of the legal framework is the Mr. Cunha from the state. Why don't we open a free dialogue with the society to assess the current report of normal 4 respecting the approval regulation in accordance to the legal framework and what has to be done to guarantee that norm or law to guarantee this separation, as if it was done with CGI, where we have this multi-stakeholder, multi-sectorial discussion aspect. And the legal civil framework is a consequence of the 10 principles for the use and governance of the Internet, which was approved by CGI.br after a long discussion period. And CGI.br, let me remind you, it's an entity with a multi-sectorial participation. I would highly recommend, if possible, to read a declaration of coalition of rights and duties of the network, which refers technically to all the details of this possible cancellation of Norm 4. Thank you.
Obrigada, CA. Interessante
Thank
você ter
you,
trazido a LGT.
Carlos. Thanks for mentioning LGT and the General Connection Protocol.
Seus regulamentos, isso é muito importante. E esse resgate histórico é
And
fundamental.
thanks for all this
Foi uma opção, talvez, né, CA?
walk in the past, because probably that was an option of those who were in charge of those norms to perform this normative separation. But I believe that LGT could have welcomed more explicitly, more clearly, what would let us to be in a more comfortable position today. Isn't it, Flávia? Yes, good morning, everyone. I would like to thank IX.br and CGI for the invitation and the opportunity to be here.
Porque como eu vou propor aqui uma
I will
reflexão
suggest
sobre
a reflection upon the legality or not about the measure that Anatel simply wants to overrule a public policy just like that. And I have a presentation to share with all of you. Can we have the first slide, please? As I'm going to talk about norms and so on, I think it's a good idea to go back in time.
De como que se estruturou legalmente
as how
a questão da internet.
Internet has legally been structured in Brazil. In 1988, when the federal constitution was homologated and there was a worry about the competences of the union, Article 21, the one that would deal with the union's competence to explore telecommunication services and also the exclusivity of the union to explore data broadcast. That's exactly what we had in the federal constitution of 88. But at that time, we started with the privatizations of a number of companies. I was a reviewer of the change of that device at that time because we had
deixa eu ver se é para baixo aqui. A gente teve uma alteração, então,
we had a change in 1995 once privatizations by the electrical companies started and the Telebras system was almost ready to become a private company. Telebras was a holder of all other companies in actions. They would regulate the state services and Embratel, which would regulate the network for international calls and data network. And it was a constitutional idea to remove data network from the public power. And this separation started due to a constitutional option. And under this Anatel's decisions, the one taken last April, is quite relevant. And within the same context, and if we follow the reasoning of this constitutional change, we have the issue of this 148 law, which clearly mentioned that internet connection services is an added value services. Later on, in 1997, the Constitution has asked for the Anatel regulatory matters, and Anatel had clearly stated network services and added value services, where Anatel would be able to regulate the relationship between service providers of added value if that service provider is a telecommunication user. But internet connection service, according to Norm 4, is a service which has added value. Therefore, if Anatel says today that they are able to regulate the action between platforms and internet or connection internet service providers, Anatel is extrapolating its roles. Vivo, for instance, which is another Brazilian telco, which delivers telecommunication services as well as internet connection services. And Anatel wants to become a provider of two services, exactly as the Vivo telco company is doing. And they believe they have competence to regulate it, but they don't have it because we are talking about internet providers with the internet connection and services. And here we are talking about a relationship which we establish between two added value service providers. Carlos knows what I'm talking about because Anatel extrapolates its attributes in 1991 once they want to add, 1997, I mean, where they want to bring internet added value services once Anatel creates the multimedia communication services. And according to the third article of this document or resolution, they say that is a fixed telecommunication services of collective interest based on national and international private sphere. And now they start invading data transmission, internet, which in accordance to LGT and the Federal Confederation, that is not due to Anatel. They say that they may allow the offer of transmission, emission, and reception of multimedia information using any other means. And a bit later, in 2013, once they reform the resolution of multimedia services, and they go even beyond it, you know, they want to reach what we have today. I was a reviewer of that since 2011. I was, you know, all left by myself. Nobody would agree with me. The multimedia service becomes available in 2013, and that is a service which allows the transmission ability as well as the reception of multimedia information, allowing to provide internet connection. And during their public hearings, Anatel tried for a number of times to validate that in their public hearings, and the civil society wants to withdraw norm number 4. Several attempts were happened, but not successful. And I would like to make an analysis about Anatel's, which now with the overrule of norm 4. First, Anatel is a company which implements public policies that is expressed in the LGT norms. Anatel hasn't got the power to withdraw any of the norms. No, let me correct myself. They have exclusively the power to edit or to overrule norms as to the communication. They justify their act in this Article 214, which says that regulation norms and others, they will be gradually be replaced by other regulations. Because we had a system which was public, we had the privatization in July 1998, we had a separation between the services, a new regimen, the public and the private one for service providers, and new norms would be edited by the regulatory agency. So it was quite natural where they would be responsible to overrule norms in the prior service provider, where the public provider would be the one responsible for the services. However, norm 4 is not the one about telco, but rather about added value services, which in accordance to LGT does not comply with Anatel's rules.
Princípios do direito administrativo que mostram também que a atuação da Anatel nesse ponto
administrative principles which demonstrate that it is now irregular. And the first principle, because the dispositions of the law are not being complied with, and also the principle of normative, which determines that they cannot cancel the actions that have been approved. So if you have a public policy from 1995 in the Constitution, which has excluded, as we saw with the amendment number 8, excluded data transmission from the list of public services, when the Constitution attributes this to the competence of the union, they say that these are public services. In Article 21, you have telecommunications, radio dissemination, electricity, public services, data transmission, and I was a critic at the time, was left outside. It was a public policy adopted by the constitutional legislator, by the Ministry of Communications, and also at the same date that these bylaws were edited, like 147, the CGI was created to determine the technical guideline strategies. In addition, the ability to regulate of this norm is not in the hands of Anatel. It has a subordinated autonomy. It reports to these two levels, the President of the Republic, Minister, or the legislative power if we had a law changing these things. But this never happened. And then Anatel said that it did happen because Law 14,744 was edited. It was amended, and it determines postal services, and it states that communication services and multimedia services are considered as the service provided at a national level, which enables the offer of the ability of transmission, emission, and receipt of multimedia information, including internet provision. And then, as determined by Complementary Law number 95, which is the law that deals with the preparation, writing, and changing of laws. Furthermore, decrees and normative actions, because of the principle of the hierarchy of laws, has to be done by agencies that have the same power. And Anatel reports to the Ministry of Communication and could not cancel a public policy which has been consolidated for 30 years, as it is doing now, and the way it is being done. So what are the consequences so that I can wrap up here? In case this decision is maintained, and in my opinion, it's absolutely illegal with possible consequences, including inconstitutionality, if Norm 4 is revoked. First of all, the data transmission is a public service, because if it is telecommunications, as Anatel claims, the internet service will be a public service subject to, for example, according to Article 18 of the law, all the government has to do is to create a decree and extend the public regimen for the internet, and then we will probably have an increase. Anatel said that this decision will only be in full force as of 27 because of the tax reform, because of a series of issues which today benefit service providers of added value who do not pay ICMS because of decisions that have been reiterated. And if this ever happens, and if we have SVA being transformed into telecommunication services, we don't know if in the context of the tax reform, what these services are going to be taxed for. And one of the most relevant things here is that when the legal framework was determined, it said that internet governance has to be multi-stakeholder with the participation of the internet manager in Brazil, and therefore we're going to have a democratic character, because in Anatel, the autarkies are, or they have a very low representation. We don't have participation. I participated in one of Anatel's board, and I can tell you that things are very complicated there. I have judicialized the different aspects and do not want to get into details. But to wrap up my presentation here, I would like to share with you something said by the Anatel's board director, Alexandre Feire. He said that a consensual solution may have a diverse outcome than we would have in conditions of institutional normality, since there will be a suspension of the legislation and all of the agencies precedents, creating a crisis instrument. And so he understands that under certain circumstances, it is possible to withdraw the law and what the agency does, creating a crisis management instrument. So, words are difficult to understand sometimes, but we're talking about the principles of legality, a constitutional principle exposed to every public agent. So let's vote the way we want, based on the economic interests that today are in the scope of the agency. And so this will only be put into force as of 27, and we will have a lot of time to fight against this. It will be a complicated situation, and it is reinforced by TL 4557, which makes the Internet Steering Committee report to Anatel, and therefore we're talking about the multi-stakeholder character that we have to fight for. Thank you very much.
Bom, estou entendendo, 31 minutos. Queria então abrir a possibilidade para perguntas,
so I wanted to open for considerations. There is a microphone. You can ask questions using the microphone.
Temos o primeiro ali. Por favor, se apresente e faça a sua pergunta. Obrigada. Acho que o microfone não está ligado ali, pessoal. Pode dar um auxílio, por favor?
Obrigado. Bom dia a todos. Eu sou o Ayub.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ayub. Once I listened to you, I wrote down some aspects of interest. We have a wave of attacks to the internet coming from this agency, and they date back to a very long time. In 2016, the board said that the broadband was bound to finish. They said that the internet was about to collapse, and if there was no limitation to how much households would be able to use it, we would have no internet available. And I challenged them publicly. That never happened, and they never proved anything about it.
Esse projeto proativo da agência reguladora de restringir a oferta do mercado.
So we have to have a proactive project, but in the meantime, we had the law project, so-called the fake news law project, and we wanted to define what was true, what was false. The technical content was really surprising. It was false. And once again, the agency was offering to moderate internet content. And then after that, proactively, the agency discussed the internet toll charges. They wanted to charge for content, but the big techs are users just as we are, but they wanted to charge a toll to provide access, and therefore, once again, the agency is trying to do something which has only been tried before in South Korea, where there was increase in latency, increase in the loss of packages. So for the first time ever in history, the only country that increased broadband cost was South Korea. And so this is the perverse innovation that Anatel wants to bring to Brazil. There is a website called Pedágio na Internet toll charges. It's a perverse innovation. And then the law project of 2024 number 4557, which would place CGI.br, which is the multi-stakeholder framework here in Brazil. We have the largest PPT in the world, thanks to its multi-stakeholder character. Also, I've receiving emails on email blocks of Anatel's IPIs. This happened because we had a process without any transparency, and we are forbidden to tell clients why a website cannot open. We know that the user has been blocked, but we cannot let them know that. And then last year, at the IX Forum, to my surprise, once again, the agency came to the podium to say that it had a project to measure internet, and from a technical point of view, there's nothing really to measure internet. We have the latency involved, the power of the device, and so once again, it's another initiative to attack the internet with services limitation. And so all this timeline I told you about are things that Anatel is trying to impose us. Our technical community has to fight against these attacks. Thank you very much. Good morning, my name is Rodrigo. I work with streaming on TV and in radio with public communication, and I am a bit lost here. Sometimes we fall into this place of technical communication and cannot explain users directly what this means for them and what this process is like, and what the impact will be in the lives of internet users who access streaming and so on and so forth. So we can see in telecommunications with 3G, 4G, 5G networks that they're trying to limit what we can access free of charge or not. And at the same time, in the broadband at home, we do not have this differentiation. So how can we separate and explain this to users? And what is the impact of this in the internet legal framework? And I have one other question. Why isn't Anatel more focused on actually screening the current system than the internet? Because it doesn't really make any sense for us to have thousands of pirate calls being developed by pirate services within the telephone service to have an impact on our current system. That's not a problem for them, but interfering with the operations of the internet is something they're willing to do. So why do we have these inversion of values? It's important for users to understand this. So what is the impact on the legal framework, and why does Anatel prioritize add more work scope for them when it's not even their role to do it? Well, thank you very much, Rodrigo. Do you have online questions?
O senhor precisaria ali no microfone para...
You would need to use your microphone.
Posso fazer minha pergunta?
Can I ask my question? Yes, of course, please.
Eu peguei aqui a apresentação da doutora no final e eu pergunto a ela.
This is regarding the last part of your presentation. We've seen this change in the authority to act. So what can we do as providers to fight this invasion of our authority in our segment? So what's your name? Michael, okay, I've written it down and we're going to answer it later. Next one. I have an online question from Wagner Alves. If Anatel controls internet governance, what would prevent the government from trying to control internet governance?
Qual o nome da pessoa?
So what is your name?
Wagner Alves.
Wagner Alves.
Próximo, e aí a gente passa para as respostas aqui.
Next one, and then we will start answering these questions. Good morning, I'm Aurelio Oliveira. I am from the Federal Institute. I have a master's degree and specialize in distributed network. Even though I have not have any experience in the federal area, what he said here about the internet problems we had in 2017, he's totally right. Those of us who do not work with this, but we know about this. But what happens is that they make decisions, they make the wrong decisions, which have an impact in the private sector. The private sector creates jobs. This legal framework, for goodness sake, it is going to hit the private sector completely. And you know this better than I do. You are going to hit the private sector, and then we will have to let people go. We will have to fire our employees, because if they cannot filter on behalf of their clients, what are you imposing here? This forum here, it should help us, it should foster our freedom to communicate in this area. And I'm calling attention to this because I am a journalist as well, and actually we read about this. It's not going to work to do it top down. This is something that we should be discussing at a national level with the small providers. They will all be impacted by these decisions. So somebody has to speak on their behalf when discussing with the government. The government mandate is 4 years. They leave and we stay here with these problems to deal with. I'm speaking here as a technician and also as a journalist. I am sure that what I'm saying is bound to happen with this internet legal framework. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. I am now going to turn over to Flavia and CI. We have IUB, who provided us a timeline. It wasn't really a question, but it was very interesting to illustrate the problem. And then we had Rodrigo, Flavia, asking what the impact of this change is for users. And we were discussing how we can better communicate it to those who are not technicians. How can we perform this miracle? And Mario asked us how we can question this infringement of authorities. Wagner spoke about how we can prevent CGI and if internet governance lies in the hands of Anatel, what is going to happen? And then a last comment we had about all of these issues involving changes in the legal framework of the internet. So I'm going to give you each 5 minutes to answer and then 2 more minutes to wrap up. Sia, okay, well, first of all, I noted in general, based on all the comments that were made, that nobody really likes Anatel very much, right? But Anatel plays a very important role, which is the regulation of the electrical magnet spectrum. This is their main role. Examine the devices, certify them, determine the separation among channels and what their functions are. This is very important in terms of regulation. And it should do that because it is what it should do. However, it wants to do more and move on to content. It's as if in the days we had fax using fixed telephone lines, so Anatel could regulate if we could transmit colored or black and white faxes. Internet does not have to interfere with the bits that are being transmitted. And then another is an amazing work, and all of this is done with private resources. This is at risk because if you combine Anatel's effort to end with Norm 4 and the law project, which places everything under Anatel's authority, it is a huge attack against the current governance system that we have, and we cannot allow that to happen. Thank you, CA and Flavia. And so I wanted to start with what CA mentioned about Anatel. I would also like to remind you that regulating agencies play the role to regulate the use of radio frequencies and also the use of public networks, which were delivered, they are no longer public, and everything is in the hands of Oi and Telefônica. The radio frequencies that were object of the 5G bidding, they were delivered for a very low value under the argument that Anatel was not going to bid to collect all of this, and so the demand for bidders to invest in infrastructure, well, this is Anatel's role to guarantee investments and the sustainability of infrastructure according to the demand of users in the country, promoting or helping to promote a universalization. And all of this has been included in the law. And we have a situation where users are at a vulnerable position. But according to Anatel's history, these are positions that most of the time, and IUB mentioned a series of examples here, they go against the collective interests of consumers. And I will talk to you about one. This has been a struggle and remain as such, and it has to do with the neutrality of the network. Anatel did not want to guarantee the neutrality of the network, so much so that the provision was limited. And it was maintained in the mobile access of the internet. And this has already been acknowledged by the European Court of Justice. In Colombia, also, these service plans have been forbidden because they will have an impact on the type of access that we have available and the defense of fresh air. It will certainly make services more expensive. Also, the challenge with transparency. We have lawsuits where we've been struggling for 15 years to obtain information from Anatel, and this is something the CGI and IX.br also do. And I would like to remind you that Anatel has a voting right in the Internet Steering Committee, but it did not carry out a discussion on Norm 4. In other words, Anatel does not like to discuss. Anatel likes to make decisions on its own based on the interests of economic agents. We have different examples of this. And so, in addition to the criticism I'm making here, because Anatel's performance and it does not comply with the law, I would like to remind you that we have a commitment with multi-stakeholder governance. And as opposed to PL 4557 says that if we have any institutional frailty, but I don't see any, and that is also mentioned in the legal framework, in the protection of personal data. This has also been confirmed by our Supreme Court. And so, what we need in response to the other question and how we're going to respond to this is that eventually we will have to judicialize. IX.br has already made a complaint. I think that it will hardly be approved, but we have to ask providers and other stakeholders to make the decision, to make these decisions and adopt what can be adopted so that we can keep this multi-stakeholder model, which is being threatened right now, unfortunately.
We still have a few minutes left. I would like to ask Moreiras, if possible, to make some comments upon the questions which were asked. I would like to agree with IUB about artificial shortage and what the telco companies they say about that. We have to convey the message of the PTT's roles in the large networks to be able to allow internet exchange traffic. In addition of having this shortage, we have developed policies within CGI and IX.br, which is the IX, the PTT, which may collaborate to all of that. Rodrigo asked about the user's impact and how may we better communicate that. And I'd like to answer your question by saying the following. Our concerns about norm number 4 and the relationship with Anatel, and I can easily say it's not because we may like it or dislike Anatel, if they comply or not with their roles. This is a different discussion. In our case, there is a principle of best practices. Those who control and regulate the infrastructure layer should not control and regulate the content layer, which is our intermediate layer. Why is it? Because that means a huge power concentration on a single decision-making entity. And those who control infrastructure, if they become controllers of the packages as well, we may have violations in principles and norms to us, such as the continuity of some services being rendered, description in the IP's services, concrete threat to network neutrality. So this should be followed by a regulatory separation, not just the institutional one. These are principles of good governance to avoid a scenario where we are going to have power concentrations. It could be any agency, but in that case, we have to say that from my side, for instance, it is less, but it goes beyond it. It's a question of best practices and principles, which will represent a user's impact, as that may lead to increase in the consumer's prices. We may have a reduction in the quality of the services provided. A number of questions that, after all, users may not perceive it, but as time goes by, the interventions that they are going to have will generate impact to users. This is a hard topic, but we have to communicate that to the society as a whole. And the competence invasion, we will need to fight against it. I am a CGI coordinator. I am a representative of the governmental department, Science of Technology and Innovation, and I may guarantee that we are actively working to guarantee that this separation, which is a principle, will be kept as to what it has to do with the norm 4 and the current structure of internet governance. And it is important to say that Anatel is not the government, but rather an autarky. And the measures, they do not imply a previous consultations to federal entities by Anatel. So we have to have a separation in that sense, which shows a certain failure of the current structure of regulatory agencies, as this is not simply Anatel's problem, but rather a more complex matter. And to close, we are living difficult times. And what is the reason for that difficult time, of this tsunami, sort of speaking, of offensive matters about this logical infrastructure of internet protocols and internet governance? First, due to the centrality that internet is getting in the international geopolitical scenario, due to the fact that, economically speaking, telecommunications became a commodity, and to become relevant in this scene, you have to act over a layer where the societies, the governors, they will see as being the most relevant one, which is internet and their applications. I comment usually, and Rodrigo, on an attempt to communicate to those who are not from our department, our field, and I am a journalist. People first, they have to understand what internet is. And this is a cake of 3 layers. I don't know if you have any grandma who cooks a cake of 3 layers. The first infrastructure is the communication. The intermediate layer is the so-called internet. And by that I mean protocols and the whole logical layer. And the third one are the internet applications. Three different stuff, but one depends on the other. They are interrelated and they do need different governance structures, because those who offer services like that are different agents. And we have to avoid that the governance or the regulation would be concentrated on one single regulatory agency or entity, which may put us on a very complicated position, in addition to what we have been addressing, such as neutrality, interventions, as well as to communication, right to communication, and right to expression. If we have the same regulatory agents controlling the three layers on a single way without any social participation, which after all is what we want to maintain, and what could be an example to other layers. In our intermediate layer, we have a very open participation, but which we had to replicate to other layers. Thank you all for the debate and for the invitation. And this panel is over. Thank you.
Quero agradecer,
I'd like
então,
to thank
imensamente aí a Renata,
Renata, Carlos Afonso, and Flavia for this brilliant panel. I know it was a trick topic, difficult to us, to those who are technicians, analysts, and engineers, but we decided to have that right in the first session of this event, in the opening session actually, because for its relevance, the whole governance system and multi-sectorial system, participative, which allowed the existence of IX.br and the whole infrastructure, including X.br, all of that is being questionable, not only as to Norm 4, but also about the project law, PL, as they say in Portuguese, and we have to participate in a very clear manner. I know that this is a debate which does not have to do with our technical staff, but yet is very important for the continuity. There are things which have been questioned, and it's important that we talk about all of that and participate actively. And I have seen some people, even from our own internet ecosystem, suppliers, people who are in the exhibition area, equipment suppliers, service suppliers, consultants, who are not even aware of all these matters, So it's important that we take that to a table and to the discussion. I hope that this panel has collaborated to that. Renata, Carlos Afonso, and Flavia, congratulations. And now let's proceed to the next panel, which has a more rather concept now, connectivity in the northern and northeast region. And once again, I would like to invite Julio Sirota from IX.br to be our panel's moderator. And once again, David Góes from ETICE, Eduardo Grisenti from RNP, Jesaias Arruda from Abranet, Maicon Souza from Click IP, and Sérgio Araújo Oliveira from Claro Brazil.
Agradeço a todos vocês por terem aceitado participar do evento.
Thank you so much for accepting participating at this panel. And now I'm gonna give the floor to Júlio Sirotas, who's be the moderator of this panel.
Obrigado, Moreiras.
Thank you, Moreiras.
Agradeço a presença aqui desse time de colaboradores aqui.
Thank you to all the collaborators to help us to talk a little bit more about connectivity in the northern and northeast region. We have people here from different areas. I know that you are going to introduce yourselves, but we have an operator that is offering services for a long time in this region, access providers. They also operate in the data centers. Resende from RNP, which is responsible to interconnect all the academy in the country.
E também tem uma atuação super importante aí, uma presença
who is from Abranet with a very important presence around the region of Manaus.
E o Davi da ITICE, né, aqui do estado do Ceará.
And then Etice from Ceará State, which in my opinion is an example as how the state could participate in the municipality interconnections.
E assim, acho que o objetivo é a gente ouvir de vocês o
Our
que
goal
já existe hoje
is to hear from you what we have available today and what is the future, what's the forecast for the future of telecommunication in the north and northeast region? How will that evolve? I know that last year we had a number of actions in the northern regions. We understand that there is a huge investment, entrepreneurship in the construction of new networks. They have all the fluvial connections, and people are working hard to develop connectivity. Shall we start with Grisende? Not being the oldest one, come on. Not gonna say that.
Quando o Júlio começou e falou diversidade, eu falei, será que ele vai dizer diversidade de idade?
When Julio said diversity, I was thinking about age diversity. Come on, the prior panel made me remember our conclusion thesis in 1977. That was my conclusion thesis about a so-called ARPANET. There was no cell phone. Internet, which we know today, was not around, of course not. No web, no nothing.
E foi muito bom esse painel. E aí eu tenho a minha opinião pessoal e
And I have my personal opinion.
Perdoe-me, eu já estou apontando a você, porque que é a camada de
telecommunications layer, and not the internet layer, which in my opinion, we cannot split two things. The telecommunication layers being neutral as to internet services. And I would like also to collaborate to this discussion, which we should not name as internet connection services, but service of access to the internet, because we don't want to make a confusion with expression connections to the service of telecommunications. And let's not make a difference between data anytime we talk about communication services to internet services, because everything is data, even voice is data, and even voices, they are getting to the internet since the very beginning. In the 60s, 70s, they had their own network voices, and now they don't anymore. Okay, having said that, RNP is the Brazilian academic network, and we operate the academic Brazilian internet. Our services are delivered to the academy, and like everybody else, we are concerned about having a telecommunications infrastructure to promote this internet service to our academic community. And it's good to know that we have opportunities to implement infrastructures where we have a strategy to implement infrastructures in partnership, mainly. I'm going to include Sergio with the providers and telecom operators, telecom carriers. We advocate for the neutrality of the telecommunications framework and sharing. The whole infrastructure that we have and that we are not using, we are worried about sharing it. And we can share in an exchange where we benefit from it. So that is how we work daily. We don't want to cause any burden to our infrastructure. We like to swap things and sharing things. Am I anticipating the question that you were about to ask me or not, which is the Connected Northern Region? The program is called Norte Conectado, Connected Northern Region, which is a program from the Telecommunications Ministry with its governance, which is the CGI. The scientific name is PAIS, P-A-I, Sustainable Amazon Integrated Program. The Connected Northern includes this PAIS, P-A-I-S, which is the program, which forecasts the implementation of 8 or 9 infovias. Let's make 9, because we are talking about 9 infrastructures which are more recently constructed, which they are 8, as they had absorbed an infovia which was implemented by the military in another program called Amazon Connected. So we have North Connected, Amazon Connected, and PAIS, the PAIS project. But more recently, PAIS encompassed all of that. And now we are talking about Connected Northern of 9 infovias, and 07, which is from Manaus to São Gabriel da Cachoeira. That was in the past PAC 1 and PAC 2. So from now on, let's keep this, the importance of the military, of the army, of the first infovias, but they are all infovias of Connected Northern Region. And the infrastructures, I don't know if you know or not, the pilot of this generation of Connected Northern is the Infovia 00.
Olha aí, Macapá, Santarém, obrigado. E depois foi a AD, que fez
After,
a 01, que é de Santarém a Manaus, portanto, 0001.
Santarém to Manaus, 0001.
Macapá, Santarém, Manaus. Agora, recentemente, foi
More
entregue
recently,
a 03.
03.
Por que a 02? Não, a 02 não está ali
02
naquela região. A 03
is
está
not
em
in that
Macapá,
region.
Belém. Então,
03
hoje
is responsible
já
for
está
Macapá, Belém.
operacional Belém,
So today
Macapá,
is in
Macapá,
operation
Santarém,
Macapá,
Santarém,
Belém,
Manaus.
Macapá,
Né?
Santarém,
São
Santarém,
três OPCs.
Manaus. 3
A 04,
infovias.
que é Manaus, Boa Vista,
04,
também está
which is
pronta, mas
Manaus
ainda não
Boa
está
Vista, is
disponível para
ready
setor privado,
but
nem setor
not
público. Nós
yet
ainda não
available
estamos
to the
usando,
public
mas já está
sector. We are not
pronta, tá?
using that yet, but
E a
it's ready.
02 deve terminar
And
no
02
final
might
do ano
close by the
e
end
vamos
of the
fechar,
year.
então, o entendimento disso. E todo o programa Norte
And
Conectado
the whole
deve estar pronto
program
até 2026.
might be ready by
Logo ali. Estamos
2026.
em 2025, já estamos na metade do ano. Né? E realmente aí isso quer dizer outras
And
3
that
infovias,
means
05, 06
through other
e a 07.
infovias,
A 07, como eu falei,
02, 07, 08, which has absorbed
é
2
Manaus
infovias,
até São Gabriel da
which
Cachoeira.
is
É
Manaus
Manaus,
to
Nova
São
York,
Gabriel.
cidade. Aí, ó, eu tô falando com uma amazonense aqui, então eu tenho que me cuidar, eu sou mineiro. Mas Manaus,
Manaus,
tá bom?
Novairão,
É Vila de Moura, mas
which are the villages that are connected, okay?
Anexo do Vila de Novairão e Novairão é São Gabriel da Cachoeira. É que Novairão parece ser
Novairão seems to be a crossing area because both Novairão belongs to the Infovia 07 as well as 04.
O povo aqui tem que tomar cuidado danado, porque a gente mineirinho falando.
We have to be careful, you know?
Mas é isso mesmo, em Manaus, Novairão, até Boa
So
Vista.
Manaus, Novairão, Boa Vista.
Norte Conectado.
That we have in the Northern Connected program, which is the way they share all these infovias with the sector, with the telecommunication sector and internet. In fact, we are talking about infrastructure, which is being invested by the government resources, but 00 is the one that was the resource of the union directly, the one that we implemented. We also have resources from the auction of 4G and all others. They are being implemented by the AIF with resources of the auction of the 5G. AIF and AID are NGOs which were created for that purpose, to fulfill a certain obligations of their own process, 4G and 5G. And what are the associates of AIF? It's Vivo, TIM, and Claro, which are the carriers. About which governance? Anatel's governance. With 4G and 5G resources, it's impossible to implement all the infrastructure. And the ministry and the steering committee has asked RNP to share infrastructures with the private sector. And we do that by open process. We did that for 0001. And now, more recently, we concluded on April 30, 03. 00 has 12 providers, 01 the same, and 03, 15. 12 providers and carriers. Claro, of course, is the one which integrates the so-called consortium of 001, 03. This other one, Click IP, also integrates both, not on purpose, right? Not
Bom, não poderia ser, né? Porque a Infovia 03 tem 15 e as outras
Infoviro
duas têm 12.
03 has
Mas
15 and
10
the others
das
12.
12
But 10
também
out of
são
12,
integrantes da
they are
Infovia
also
03. E eu
integrated
estamos
of
falando dos
Infovia
principais
03.
provedores,
And here we are talking about
inicialmente, das operadoras,
the main
Vivo e
carriers,
Claro, dos
Vivo,
provedores
TIM, and
nacionais,
Claro,
como a
the
BR,
national
a Giga
providers such as ABR, Giga+,
e dos provedores regionais,
and
entre
regional
eles a Click IP, por
providers
exemplo. Tá?
such as Click
E até
IP.
provedores bem pequenos
And even small providers, they got into that, such as TP-Link
dois provedores do
and
Pará
two other
estão
providers from
integrando
Pará
rede.
State.
Então, resumindo, né, o que eu tenho a dizer aqui
So, in a
é
nutshell,
que eu diria que por causa da nossa estratégia,
due
que
to
nós,
our
RNP,
strategy,
aprendemos com o mercado
due to the
o
RNP
compartilhamento de infraestrutura, né?
as
Achamos
infrastructure
que
sharing,
tínhamos que também ter
we
isso na
thought
agenda,
that we
estávamos
should also
fazendo
have that
infraestrutura
in
para
the agenda because
o nosso
we were
serviço de
performing
internet,
infrastructure to our
mas que a
internet
infraestrutura
services,
tinha
but the
mais
infrastructure
do que nós
had
necessitamos,
much more
e
than
aí nós
what we
passamos
needed
a
to.
compartilhar, e no
And then we shared,
compartilhamento nós
and in that
reduzimos
sharing, we
custos de
reduced
operação, porque
operational
normalmente
costs.
a operação e a
Because
manutenção,
usually
mesmo nas
operation
estruturas
and
que somos
maintenance
proprietários,
of those
elas
structures of
são
which
assumidas
we
por
are
nossos
owners,
parceiros, né?
they are taken by
É
our
isso, Júlio, não
partners.
sei se
That's
o
it,
prolonguei,
Julio.
mas
I
enfim,
don't know if
acho
I
que eu
had
espero ter
got carried
conseguido passar
away,
para vocês
but
um
I
pouco
hope
da
that I
nossa
was able to share
estratégia
a
e
little
da
bit of
infraestrutura
our
nossa.
strategy and infrastructure in the region. Thank you.
Obrigado, Grisente. Não, a ideia
Thank you,
realmente é que cada
Grisente.
possa
So
dar a
the
sua,
idea is
suas ideias,
that
sua
each
contribuição,
one
né,
can give your
para a
vision
elaboração.
and
Então, agora,
contribution.
queria que o Sérgio agora,
Now, Sergio,
depois a gente
please.
passa para o Maicon aí, que são os dois que estão participando juntos aí da iniciativa aí do Norte Conectado. E aí depois vamos passar para o Gesaías aí, que ele vai falar da comunicação através de sinais de fumaça na Amazônia.
Bom dia a todos, prazer estar.
Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with this event for the first time. And I would also like to thank IX.br on behalf of Moreiras and congratulate you for the 30th anniversary. I actually started working in 1990, and so it's not so distant, but I was thinking and reminding that Embratel started in 65 with this mission of having a national integration. And of course, we have internet and net and Embratel in a single company. In the 80s, the internet arrived in Brazil, and RNP led the beginning of the use of the internet for institutions. And then in 95, we had business internet with Embratel, and at the time it was a monopoly, and this was clearly explained. And after that, we fomented the private initiative with internet and privatization and everything else. And it's interesting to see so many new companies operating today, all of them contributing for a more significant advance in Brazilian connectivity. We also talked about fax in the prior session. I started working with the expansion in the state of Pernambuco. And this is something that happened before fax. We did not have a bank agency that could operate if we didn't at least have a telex machine, and it was a way for you to transmit data from one place to the other in a safe manner. And back in the day, it was the only way possible. And then we had fax, which wasn't as safe, and therefore all of the other companies that used telex in a safe way, and they had to migrate to data transmission immediately after that. And today we have different modality of what we call data transmission, including the internet. In 2010, we had a challenge to reach Manaus with optic fibers. We didn't have it in Mato Grosso, Rondônia, Acre, and the Amazon. We didn't have optic fiber backbone. And we had a challenge at the time. I was already working with the implementation of networks. And so from Brasília to Manaus, we had this optic fiber backbone, which allowed us to meet the needs of different cities and cross the Solimões River with an underground railway to reach Iranduba, and then the bridge in Iranduba and Manaus. At the time, we didn't have a bridge, and we crossed Sen. I am very happy now, after all this time, so that we can integrate this project and will enable us to leave Manaus and Belém as well. Being robust is extremely important for infrastructure. It's not easy to maintain optic fiber networks in Brazil. An optic fiber network is always going to be laid on top of pre-existing infrastructure, be it a post, a road, an electricity tower. And so all of them are subject to external factors, to climate factors, and bad weather. And therefore, it's important for us to have different options of pathways and means. We had two ways to exit Manaus. We had a former energy transmission line in place, but we still needed a third exit. And it's really nice to be able to have these info pathways. So we started with 00, 01, 02, and 03 as commented by Grisend. I think this is a pioneer. It is essential. We have operators, and I think that this is an important and smart way to make investments that are coordinated so that we can really expand our infrastructure in these areas. And for you to have an idea, in addition to robustness, we will reach 30 cities in more inner areas with either fixed or mobile internet, depending on the area. To all of these other cities, with Infovias, we have 4 cities in the island of Marajó. so that you can have an idea of all of the different locations. Breves is a 100,000 inhabitant cities, and we did not have any internet available. We will be getting there, and with that we have different other examples. Parintins actually, and we had the whole event using optic fiber. We have different examples that we can mention, connecting schools, hospitals, public companies in general, commerce, private initiative. I am very proud to be carrying this out along with everyone else. And I just wanted to mention something very interesting. This year, we concluded the implementation of a network for the implementation of connectiveness of all post-op agencies in Brazil. We are present in 5,500 municipalities, and this was only possible because of our extensive capillarity and Claro's national connectivity with a network of suppliers which have complemented our networks. And so in every Brazilian municipality, we have at least a provider, service provider supporting us. And so it only shows how much we've advanced and how much we expect to advance in the upcoming years. First of all, good morning, everyone. First of all, Click IP is a relatively young company. It's only 8 years old, started operating in 2017. It was created along with other companies. And today it is the largest provider in the North region. We participate in the the so-called Connected North project. We wanted to connect physical persons, the end client, and we've been working hard for this disruptive project with very complex solutions. Our operation started in Manaus. We are very familiar with the whole state. We know it by heart, and we know what the challenges involved are as well. In the Amazon, there are two realities. We're very familiar with it and have a presence in all of the different cities. In the Amazon and Pará, there are two realities: the capital city, where the city is well connected with quality internet, high speed, prices that are maybe even lower than in the inner state of São Paulo. I tell my colleagues here what the prices are for 500 giga, 1 giga, and they say that it's cheaper than in other places in Brazil. So we've overcome this challenge. And we are now considering paving the road, but this is a long-standing controversy. I personally visited the stations and analyzed the possible placement of a station there. We already have a cable available there, but it's missing in some central areas. But these struggles are always so complicated. We also have infrastructure that was made available for the World Cup, but it also solved the speed issue they had. And so the speed in those towns, you have Manaus and Cabo, the Porto Velho, where you have the electricity line, and so all of the speed issues have already been solved. The problem now has to do with availability. And we have all of the infrastructure that I mentioned before. Claro's cable is passed through a place where you can't reach by car 6 months per year unless you use a tractor. We have a Vivo TIM consortium. Claro is a user. I don't know exactly what the terminology is, but there are issues that have not been overcome to this day. We trying to bring the station back into town. Manaus has no speed problem. It has availability problem. We have 4 or 5 shutdowns per year, and we're now trying to find a third pathway with the activation of the pathway. And so we've been one of the first companies to activate Infovia 01 network. So after this infrastructure is activated and use it, we know that we can overcome problems. But we're talking about the capital city. The reality is different. Low cost, saturated market. Today, we cannot pass a single cable in Manaus. It is an example of how you can have fiber set on electricity posts. The provider there and the competition with very low prices, but that's their reality. The reality is totally different. For us, we go from one extreme to the other, and there are cities that only have Starlink available. There's a city in the border with Pará. It's called Terra Santa, the Holy Land. And a 30,000 inhabitant city with 20 providers, a lot of competition, very low cost. On the other hand, on the other side of the river, you had the Amazon and Parintins, which didn't have anything. It's like a digital abysm. 2 mega cost 250 BRL, and then on the other side we had Terra Santa, where 500 mega costed 150 BRL per month. Infovia got there to correct these huge differences. We went from 0 subscribers to 4,000 subscribers within 40 days of operation. We arrived there with salespeople, technicians for installation, and we really connected the whole city. We were one of the first to activate the 5G project. And then We reached Parintins, the whole network was working. Parintins was a reference on the chaos of a city without optic fiber, in 2024. This problem was solved. But this effect did not happen, did not take place in Taquatiara. It's a 4,000 inhabitant city, and it was a city whose needs were already met. We went there just to complement the infrastructure. Infovia had an impact, has different actually impacts in different places, but it's very important to provide infrastructure in the northern region, and we are facing our challenges heads up. It is a challenge for us as an operator. It is challenging, and sometimes it takes us 1 week to repair something, and sometimes it takes us 3 months. We have a ruptured cable in Taquatiara. It's a challenge for them. Itacoatiara is immediately after the crossing of the Madeira and the Amazon rivers. It is very complex. So I'm going to suggest something I've done already. We're going to send a letter to the Ministry of Communications. But the conclusion is that we do believe in this important project. It is here to help solve the connectivity issues in the region of Manaus as a whole. And it will have an impact on different cities and different populations. There is an operational challenge as well.
Como é que eu posso dizer da melhor forma? Eu considero, vou falar minha visão, Maicon, como clique
I will tell you about my view on this. I think that Infovia has a complementary infrastructure. It cannot be considered as the main provider for any city unless there is redundancy available, because an infrastructure, how you connect a whole city where the cable can be down for 10 days. According to our contract, our window is 15 days, but it cannot be considered as the major infrastructure. It's important for us to develop technology so that we can have a more stable SLA. In regions where there are other alternatives available, we're really going to be able to deliver exceptional quality, because we can deliver availability and the quality that we all need. Regarding the challenges, I wanted to comment here. Just to wrap up, we are preparing a letter to the ministry, and we're also going to send it to others. It's information on Rio Madeira. In our understanding, it is not feasible to operate there. If we do construct and everything else is 100% solved, then we can do it. But our impression is that for the Madeira River, and I shared this in our meetings, it cannot be maintained. We have to find a solution for it. I will share our idea a little bit. It doesn't make sense to have cables installed in the Madeira River because it is a very rough river, the roughest one. The riverbed changes all year long. We have illegal and legal operations there, illegal mining in the region. Everything happens around the Madeira River. And so You know, it's complicated, and the best scenario for the Madeira River would really be to have a real infrastructure along with river infrastructure with crossings in different ports and also transmission towers, similar to the OpenGW tower. We've had experience with this type of project, and there is what we call ecologic port. It is a fiber project. It only weighs 150 kilos. They combine two pots, have a tower installed, and take the cable to the final destination without having to cut trees or anything else. The post is transported by something that is very similar to a motorcycle. It is, but it's used on the river. They use it for transportation. It doesn't destroy anything. It is very sustainable. And also, we can connect these cities on the margin of the river. This is my vision. Count on Click IP to continue connecting people, whatever the Infovia goes by. Thank you all for your attention.
Obrigado, Michael. Jesaias, que assim, a gente já conhece você, você já participa dos nossos eventos.
Isaías, we know you. You've participated in our events for a long time. You've shared a lot of information. We learned more about the challenges and the work you carried out along with BMOB and take internet to people. I would like to ask you to complement what they've said and what your expectation for the future is. Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Actually, I spoke for IX.br for the first time in 2017, but it feels like it was yesterday. I did not have TCC in 77, but I had one in the year 2000, which was totally based on a telephone line connection using voice over IP. It is amazing. We had a flash simulation going from one side to the other, assembling a package, disassembling on one side actually, and assembling it on the other side. But time has gone by very fast, and then we come here and we talk about the Amazon and the North, which is something fascinating. We're talking about 15 years ago. The internet we know now did not even exist. So you can imagine how many conversations we had with Embratel and then Clara. I saw Marise sitting in the back row here. We've discussed a lot about connectivity, but there's something I always say, and it remains true. Michael said it. We have optic fiber internet. We've had it for 15 years, only in Manaus. Before that, 1 mega cost 2,800 BRL, and that was 15 years ago. It's as if I said that a mega would cost 30,000 BRL today. The North region has 450 municipalities. When I look at Pará and Amazonas, or the Amazon, and when we talk about significant connectivity here in Brazil, we're talking about 22 to 24% of significant connectivity in average. In Pará, we have something close to 9, and in Pará, 16. And to this day, some municipalities in the North region in Brazil do not have even one optic fiber launched in a post. I'm not going to romanticize this. A lot of it has to do with financial feasibility. You will launch 2,000-3,000 kilometers of optic fiber to meet a city like this. How can you do it? And so our challenge, and we talked about 5G investments some time ago, optic fiber, how are we going to make it get there? But connecting the Amazon and the North region is a huge challenge. Today, we have connected 67 locations in the northern region. Michael was talking about this very small canoe that works as if it was a motorcycle. It is very small, and it uses an engine that goes in the water. It's like one of those tiny little Honda motorcycles, but on the river, and I would be driving it, so it will move very slowly. When we first started in the inner northern region, I wanted to show the following. Connecting Brazil is a mission in itself. So I was talking to Rosende before that the Connected Amazon project, before starting it, the Army connected the supply battalion and another one. I think they lost the fiber about 4 times, and it was a 4-kilometer long launch. The river is still very challenging. So we talk about submarine fibers. This is wonderful, but they test it at the bottom of the ocean, and then you connect it to the city. But in the river, you go through a bed. The bed is now at a place. When you go there next year, the bed is at a different place. In the first project, we had moments where the fiber was found on land in a depth of 4 to 5 meters, when it had been launched a year before at the bottom of the river. The Madeira River is not called Madeira, which means wood, by chance. They just use it to transport logs, wood logs. And so in the north, this is totally different. And why? Because in some cities, they are connected via radio. Some of these cities used 115-meter high towers, but the demand for connection increases. So you have something via radio, you have a fiber going through a smaller river or a lake to get to the other side, and then this optic fiber, is it prepared for this? Is it specific for this? No, it's just a normal optic fiber. And you will place it at the bottom of the river so that you don't lose it, because it will be floating and prone to having accidents. The cities that are connected will generate higher demand.
And to connect to the Amazon, that is far away to be a perfect connection just via optical fiber. There are some remote areas where fibers cannot be taken due to operational costs. That's very expensive to release an optical fiber. The project Norte Conectado, Connected North, it's a fortune, you know. There is a ferry, which is the whole time with that fiber that requires a crazy navigation, engineering, logistics. But there are small providers that are doing their homework and they are releasing fibers over the top of the trees. Sometimes we try to cut a community by the trunk of the trees. When it rains, and then there you see the fiber. So they start doing that from the top of the trees, the canopy of the trees. Sometimes, if not from the tree canopies, they throw it via the river. I crossed via the road 379, 319. This road has a sign which is 100 kilometers from Manaus, and I even have the picture. I may show you. Next gas station, 572 kilometers. So if there is not a gas station, let alone the rest, it's very abundant. And Claro Carrier has its base, and during the rainy season, they rescue many people who are on the way because they have to cross it. We do have a network going down Rio Madeira, Madeira River, and we are using optical fiber and towers on the way. And our goal now is to be able to link the city of Mariporã via the freeway. Is it that easy? No, of course not. There is an entrance right in the middle of the freeway. And what's the relationship between this optical fiber and any other? Anywhere else in Brazil, things are much, much easier because you are connected by freeways. And Michael, he was nice when he said that Manaus spends 4 times without connectivities. And we are just in June, and just this year, we were for 4 times with no connectivity at all. So the project Norte Conectado, Connected North, it is necessary not only to connect the Amazon region, but also to connect Roraima, which is another state nearby. And there are cities which nowadays they are connected by Starlinks. Yes, several, not only cities, but riverside communities, indigenous communities. There are indigenous communities which are 8 to 9 hours away by boat, and those communities are also connected. So what we have seen as to the coming of AI, more demand for connectivity, and what are we going to do from now on? Connected North will generate a huge benefit, not only connecting to the extremities of Brazil, but we are going to have a connection that will cross to the other side. We have satellite options. Today we have Starlink. But do you defend? No. So I wish we would have 10, 20 solutions like that, to carriers, to small providers. So we cannot forget that connection brings social inclusion. Connection allows digital inclusion. That has to do with education, knowledge. Our mission is latent. Numbers are key. Last year we had around 20 million accesses. There are still some cities in the Amazon region which find it so difficult to have a cell phone connection, internet connection. And then we see schools, hospitals.
A pergunta foi importante. Qual o conceito? O que a gente vê para frente?
What is the concept?
Eu tenho uma expectativa muito boa.
I have a very good expectation. I think now we are on a much more favorable route. Brazil as a whole has got information and is looking much more to a reality of what a connection is. That's part of a reality. Infovia relating Belém to Macapá.
Então, você sair de Macapá, cruzar ali, o Michael disse a Terra
Michael said, sent, holy sent, 2 megas for 150 reals.
É tão pertinho.
But everyone says, well, it's so close one to another. Why don't you solve it?
Tentou lançar uma fibra por aquele rio ali na frente de Parintins, pelo menos umas 50 vezes.
So at least 50 times in front of
O
Parintins.
rio ele é totalmente diferente. Quem já foi em Parintins sabe disso. À frente de Parintins, o rio tem diversos redemoinhos.
So there are several.
Fica uma semana lá e depois ela não rompe não, ela desaparece. Então,
And then it does not, they have windmills. They are called rodamoinhos in Portuguese. They tried to send optical fiber from a place to another. And even though we see challenges, they will go on. What is going to change is that other technologies for optical fibers, what other ways are we going to have? Backbones are key. The last mile will be crucial, and that will make a difference. Thank you, Josias. Now let's talk about Northeast and what is being done, what has been done in Ceará State. I would like to hear your opinion about connectivity between Pará and Fortaleza or some other states. North to Northeast connection. Shall we? Shall we start with Davi? And next, if you'd like to ask questions, feel free. We are going to open the mic, okay? Thank you, Julio. The northern challenges, they are giant. I believe that they require a governmental intervention because today we collect fruits. We harvest fruits due to the digital belt, which was an initiative back in 2008, where the idea was to release 2,000 kilometers of fibers all over that region. That was a partnership with Enel's carrier, and we use the posts, lamp posts for the fibers passage. A month ago, we had a meeting where the idea was to identify new partnerships. Today, we are around 6,000 kilometers of fibers throughout the whole state of Ceará, 135 municipalities where we have our own fibers. Those where we don't, we use our partners. Is it worth that investment? Well, there is a chart which I usually use in my presentations where it shows the private interest and the public one, where we are going to render connectivity. Since February, we are back to a government program regarding Wi-Fi in the squares. So we are closer to the second phase, 79 municipalities, with the goal to reach by the end of the year with the rest of those 79. those other 49 that we don't have, that is an investment of 6 million. We have talked with the RNP to see if they have a possibility to get to any study center. These are results that we get from a bonus that we had in 2008, which was widely criticized, where they thought, well, I'm going to create that. And today we are able to deliver technology of high velocity. We have 10 gigabytes per second. We are planning to get 10 gigabytes per second. We have lots of backbones for those fibers during the whole area. We are also releasing hearings. We have, each one of them is 10 gigabytes. We are thinking about an auction where they are gonna reach 10 gigabytes. Also, we would like to use other fibers, and the idea is to have call for bids. Call for bids. We also have a number of conceptions where we are going to be able to reach all the cities. And many companies, they became millionaires for using the state belt. Well, that's it from my side. And we are discussing with the consortium Northeast, and who knows, we can have a Northeast belt. We can get the digital belt from the state of Ceará, which is united to the state of Sergipe, Piauí, and some other units where they will be also part of the belt. We even have a financial study done, and we had presented that there is an association called ABEP, Brazilian Association of Public Companies, where we talk about that because the goal is to bring a connectivity. Fortaleza is the second largest connected point in the world in terms of optical fibers. If we connect other states throughout the digital belt with high velocity, we'll be able to reach great levels of latency in other places, in other continents. And we also have a governmental incentive in São Gonçalo, where we have some type of incentives, not only for connectivity, but data center. There is no cloud, there is no data center, there is no communication if there is no network. That's why in the beginning of my talk, I asked to anticipate that, because we are the liable ones, providers, their experience in this panel. You have heard about the TCC, the thesis, the graduation thesis, which is no longer being used. Voice over IP, they were activities that were just in their first steps, and I am graduated in technology. I'm curious one in telco, which is more for authentication, client server. Today, everyone has got that, right? Gov.br is there exactly for that purpose. But before people say, what for? And today, the information is much faster due to this connectivity. where we are acting. In Fortaleza, we have several data centers. Most of them are within the state of Ceará and Fortaleza due to connected Ceará and the submarine cables. Until they reach the state, the country. That's it from my side, from government and Northeast. Who's got information about other connections to interconnect North and Northeast? That's me again. Well, I still have hair. I didn't go bald. And second, I have to talk about my TCC. Algorithm, route selection, data transmission, which is the implementation of an algorithm in a minimal way. And Infortran was the program. You don't have the faintest idea what that is, I guess. But anyhow. I'd like to make some adjustments to what Michael said. Yes, there are some breakage in the under cable, but none of them so far have isolated no city at all. Are you with me? If there is a break, if there is a tear, you have to act in 13 days and not in 3 months, but it keeps going. The info via 0001, if that is close to Macapá, that is reached via Manaus and vice versa. So that's very important because even though there was a tear, there was no isolation. And resilience is key in face of an event like that. You have to be sponsored by the resilience. Second, connected north, if you look at that, they say that it's preferably to use under fluvial cables. And Infovia 04 from Manaus to Boa Vista, which is already concluded. One of them was subfluvial and the other one was earth. From Acaraí until Boa Vista is wired, and that they are concerned about having that duct in the road opposite to the infrastructure of carrier Oi. There is a whole story why Oi did that. And now, in fact, this 04 infrastructure is redundant to others infos. So we believe in resilience. So what has been said by 08, no, 05, he corrects himself, about Madeiras River is true. We have to be careful. And we have enough competence as Brazilians to find the best solution and to create an infrastructure which will be redundant to the infrastructure that Claro has implemented. And it's very important that the Claro infrastructure is kept and that we are going to have another infrastructure to allow resilience. Let me briefly address another program which we have. Connected North is a program from the Communication Ministry. And then we have Infovias, State Infovias, which is a program from the Ministry of Science and Technology. And we are implementing state infovias everywhere, always in partnership with providers. We release that state process and then we say, let's do that jointly. And for that, we got very happy to be able to reach partnerships with the companies of electrical energy and transmission and with the rights to use a pair of fibers. For instance, we may use that and from Fortaleza and it goes until Macabeira, which is closer to São Luís. The importance of that infrastructure and those that we have right of use for fibers of electrics, they are several going from side A to side B nationally. Different energy companies like Taesa, like Furnas Eletrosul, Chatsfield, Madeira, you name it. We have partnerships and we have the use of right. And with that, we are including those with assets to share them with the private sector and together make the best of this infrastructure. It's been very, very interesting. We are able to create some metropolitan networks and long-distance bits or joint communications to use a pair of fibers and with that share the channels for both partners. And the first infovia that we see is on the digital belt back in 2011, when we see right away in the beginning of the operations the opportunity to invest partially or incrementally in the digital belt to make use of it, and that was key. That was in 2011, we are in 2025. This is a long-lasting partnership where we work on the institutions generally, not just the state, but the capital as well, on the state of Ceará. We have implemented the metropolitan network of Fortaleza. And the idea was, if I have a infrastructure in the capital, I may also extend that. And Fernando became the president of ETICE, and as we have infrastructure, the idea of the digital belt was born, and he was the CEO of the steering committee of Fortaleza Network. If we have a metropolitan network in Fortaleza, why do we need a state network? Well, it's all part of a learning curve, and we are closer to the private sector. I'm pretty sure that we have competence enough to improve significantly operations and maintenance of infovias. I know that is difficult, but not impossible. The cable, I don't know where the cable is. Place a sensor. There is a technology called smart technology with intelligent cables. Last week, I got so scared. We were in Natal seats, and there was a teacher talking about acoustics. In a nutshell, optical fibers, they are not done just to eliminate and to help us with our internet services. No, they also hear. It's interesting.
Cientistas já estão dizendo que eles nem sabem ainda
Researchers
quantificar
don't even know the amount of applications. Petrobras shows a whale singing captured by a optical fibers. Optical fibers, they hear, they listen to the environment. And in Brazil, we have a project at the University of São Paulo where they want to use one pair of fibers to listen to seismic problem, and somebody else wants to learn more about the water movements in the northern regions. I mean, and throughout the hearing, we are able to observe many things that we have undersea thanks to the sensors. Even the disruption, seismic disruption. Peru has a optical cable that lives somewhere close to Lima, goes to Iquitos and gets to Tabatinga. And they also got ready, they have technology, and they know exactly how to operate and keep the subfluvial infrastructures. Themselves, like us and the society, we have conditions to improve it. If we are gonna find anything better than that, who knows? What we cannot do is to have proposals parallel to the north, northeast, south, southeastern region of the country. We have to have proposals to Brazilians to improve their internet services. That's it.
Anotei aqui, mas eu já falei do TCC e blá, 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 que eu tenho cabelo branco e tal, já falei tudo isso.
Olha, eu quero dizer para vocês que a anotação do Grisende é sensacional.
Grisente's notes, they are key, just to people understand what is written here. In 5 minutes, just God. Before Sergio and Michael, I would like to answer Julio's questions. This connection between the northern region going to the seaside of Fortaleza and Brazil, that changes the whole perspective of connectivity in the region. Today, if we had a problem in Mato Grosso, the northern region will be interrupted, will be at halt. Why? Is it a Claros problem? No, it's not. That involves cables, equipment, and what we see from now on is a different route where a whole region can have a second exit, different from the one we have. And that is our reality. If Claro carrier stops working in Amazonia, all other carriers will also go down because there is an exchange, but the requested ability to our region is huge. So here we are talking about a new possibility. And in addition, latencies, we are talking about the data centers. There are data centers in Fortaleza, others in São Paulo, or in the south of the country. But the proximity of the data center with the connectivity and with the extremities where that information will be taken will be crucial. And here I'm talking about, again, edge computing, which is a process at the extremities, at the ends. But for that, I do need I do need connectivity, internet, and shorter latency. And just to be more polemic, there is a study done by the University of Amazonas with 2 projects. One of them monitors the Amazon rivers with microsensors, and Curupira is another project which monitors trees in the Amazon forests with microsensors. There is this professor who is in the leadership of this project, and what they are doing is the following. They are connecting sensors, and those sensors, they connect themselves to a minimum network capacity to take this, to transfer their information. If that works as how things are going on, I guess that will also help us to improve infrastructure's maintenance. Challenges are there to be overcome. If we look 15 years behind, where we didn't have any type of infrastructure like the one we have nowadays, so there is much more to be done. And the speed as how information is updated and as how technologies is being updated, they are gonna be there, because ultimately our main goal is to connect our country, to allow connectivity from north to south, so the information will be conveyed properly, people will get informed, and then we'll be able to talk about other topics which are very important, such as basic infrastructure.
Primeiramente, responder o Grisende aqui, a gente,
First of all,
como ClickIP, entende que é importante
we'll
que o
talk
SLA
about how ClickIP understands the best way for us to move on is we are making our efforts to contribute with the repair team so that we can repair problems as soon as possible. We need to have access to technology and start developing national technology so that we can maintain all of this in future projects and in the ones that have already been implemented. Now, relating this to what was mentioned before, Isaias, this is no longer a reality. We have a backbone that leaves São Paulo. It's our own backbone operated by us. We have a network that goes from São Paulo to Porto Velho. Today, this backbone is already active in Cuiabá. I believe that it will reach Porto Velho. So, there's a reality in Mato Grosso, the state doesn't depend so much on Claro for this route to São Paulo. And it will make a lot of difference for the North region. Regarding the data center, we have a data center in Manaus. I understand that the main points of exchange in the North region, they will take place in Belém. We have projects connecting Belém to Fortaleza, and a second area of exchange will be in Manaus, because along with Claro's backbone that goes all the way to Porto Velho, we have Ecovias, which will connect the different routes. We have the Peruvians, and they will reach Tabatinga and Manaus. And so the main two focal points to connect the North region will be in Belém and Fortaleza in the North region. And maybe one day we will be close to what Fortaleza is today. And this is what I wanted to share. Thank you very much. Well, in my initial presentation, I talked about this. Two very large investments made by Claro today is for diversity and provide more robustness. This is a Brazilian reality. The Manaus shutdowns, we've had some since 23 with with what we did, because we already had optic fiber launched in 950 kilometers from Manaus to Porto Velho. We launched another one. We already had the infrastructure.
Não era suficiente. Entramos de cabeça nas infovias.
And we started working with the info vias, and thanks to that, we've had no isolation in Manaus. What you said is true. Our national backbone is interdependent. The regions are interdependent from the point of view of infrastructure. The capacity of Manaus does go through the Midwest and even the Southeast region. All of our internet leaves from the coast. We have two in the Northeast and Fortaleza, and they are extremely important and perhaps the most important one of all. After that, Salvador, and then Rio. So Recife and Salvador. So everything we have in terms of internet and the pursuit of content outside uses these three exits, and geographically speaking, so from anywhere in Brazil, it has to go through this mesh all the way it gets to the coast.
Não à toa nós temos aqui de Fortaleza 5 saídas. Só, claro, fora as demais operadoras. Para que a gente dê certeza, certeza que vai chegar aqui
to be sure that the whole demand from all of Brazil will get here.
Em Salvador e no Rio de Janeiro, que são as 3 saídas. Né? Então isso é muito importante comentar, porque
it's important to mention this.
Gigante. Desafio da latência.
It's a huge challenge. Latency, there's no way for us. It's physical. It has to do with the distance. Imagine that we go from Manaus, and depending on where the fiber is ruptured, the latency changes completely. And so, once again, the main investments that we make so that we can be more robust include capacity, and this is an important strategy that we mention here. We're talking about it today. In addition to the cache with content closer to the client, we also have all of the Brazilian municipalities. If you watch a Netflix movie, you don't have to get content from outside Brazil. And those that we watch the most, they are today in a cache close to the capital city, so that we do not depend not only on this national backbone, but also on international backbone. And this is good for all types of content, Facebook, and so on and so forth. And we're investing in 12 data centers throughout Brazil. In the north alone, we have 5. Fortaleza is one of them. In addition, of course, of our data center for the use of telecom. More and more, the networks are being virtualized, as we say it, and the pieces of equipment which have specific functions on certification, routing, all of these pieces of equipment are becoming software, and we can place them in the cloud. But this cloud is here on the ground, and we're establishing our own data center. And so there's a whole movement, and once again, robustness, capacity. And I think that the partnerships with the states and what providers we have, all of that is essential. This is an ongoing discussion of this partnership with this important 2 sectors. The infrastructure is essential, maybe even more basic, because nothing that we are discussing here, I'm talking about posts, stations, towers, high tension, The roads as well are an important partnership today. They are public and private in concession regiments. All of this has to do with infrastructure. Praia do Futuro. They also meet our needs for data centers, submarine cables. They're essential for the country. This is for all of Brazil. And it is very strategic because of the geographic position, the proximity with Europe, and also the infrastructure that has been constructed over the year. Praia do Futuro is such a wonderful place for us to be located. And so we are welcomed by the municipality in Praia do Futuro with all of the other operators. And this is a very important partnership for us. And this is it. Hyperconnectivity with a lot of capacity and a lot of resilience. This is what we have to do on an ongoing basis. Well, the mic is open. Would you like to ask any questions to the panelists? Well, good morning, everyone. I hope all is well. My name is Lucas. I work in a project with a very similar name. It is called Connected Pernambuco, State of Pernambuco. I'm very happy to know that there is an ongoing effort, be it mental or physical, so that we can promote activities in the north region of the country. The challenges are quite different. The physical problem of taking the fibers all the way there would be complicated. But my question, since you were talking about it, is last week we were having this discussion at the Congress. This is a very important discussion, and it didn't end well. We did not reach an agreement. We did not communicate well. We got nowhere. We know that whenever we have roads, we have fibers going through. But I would like to know what are the political challenges ahead of us, and if politicians are interested in supporting you to promote this connectivity. And also we have environmental issues. We know that the North region has a lot of different stakeholders, and there's a lot of noise in this communication. Thank you very much for your attention. Good morning once again. Professor Eduardo, I would like to ask for clarification, and I have a question.
A pergunta é essa aqui, tá? Eu tive em 2022, 2021.
In 22.
E eu tenho um amigo chamado General Poti, no Estado de Defesa, ele que comandou a operação Calha Norte.
General that headed this operation. I spent the day with him and visited the operation. He asked me to go and work with me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do it. It's a very beautiful project, but they were already launching the cables in the river, and that was in 21, 22. They were already launching the cases. And they went all the way to Maranhão. I know that they were launching the cables to Manaus, Macapá. Those are very remote areas. The question is regarding the cables. Where are they located, and what is being done with them? Because that has to do with the cost for the taxpayers. So this is the question, Eduardo. Please forgive me for asking this question because I do not have an opportunity to ask it. With the former government, I had access to it. I no longer do. So I would like to know what is being done with what was spent with public money. So first question, the Northeast region is different. The north, in the north, we have a lot of water. And it's easy to share data. 68 million was spent in some regions, and the governor told me himself about that. And this was very well done. I would like to congratulate those who worked with it. And so the question number 2 has to do with the Telebrás fibers. There are 24 pairs. What is being done with these fibers? And how are they used? So the questions are the questions, but I would like to have an explanation. Well, I'm sorry, we have to share the time here. Okay, so this is what I told General Poti. You use the cables, but you also have to use the satellites in the north. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all of the speakers. I am Marcos Rolim. Good morning. Knowing how important the infovias are, we know that they are the basis for data transmission and they use the roads. My concern is finding out if we have active projects to make the north region indicates what is done and bringing physical presence, promoting lower latency, because the intention here is to be able to have the best use possible for the end consumer.
Ok. Boa tarde. A gente tem 4 perguntas
We have 4 questions. We have 4 online questions, and I'm going to place them in order. The first one is by Carlos Lazaro. So what are the expectations for those living in the north in terms of improvement of connections with the rest of the country? The second question is by Kevin Bullia. Routine protocols are very important and they must be in place and be used by the system. Do you agree or not? The third question is by Marcos Martins. If the investment is so high, why is there no physical safety since they are launched without protection and are susceptible to rupture? And then finally, by Martin Pimentel in the north, I would like to know how important the connectivity point is with the other regions and how they can help us with connectivity. I'm asking different questions because we're writing a report for a TV show. So I'm asking these questions. They are part of a scope of activity of the providers and the state. Infrastructure has to do with national sovereignty. We see internal and external threats in the country. And regarding satellite internet, which is also a threat with other systems because of nationalist interest or interest from other nations, and this would be an external threat. So how do we deal with this process in terms of the optic fiber infrastructure for the whole country and internally the threats to safety which reach the client point? We saw something very strange in the beginning of the year where we had different criminals destroying optic fiber cable. So how do you assess the current delivery method? And how is it possible to imagine this partnership so that we can avoid this type of vulnerability? And this is it.
Gente, faz a última pergunta rapidinho, senão não vai ter tempo para a gente responder aqui. Tem monte de
Please
coisa.
ask the last question real quick, otherwise we're not going to have enough time to do this. Well, it wasn't clear to me, but I would like to talk about this infrastructure from Fortaleza to Belém. Who owns it?
Eu vou começar a responder aqui de forma rápida.
I will start answering very quickly. This is a long-standing political issue, and so there's a lot of politics involved. There are also environmental issues and interests involved. The state cannot wait for this connection to take place. We were very happy when they talked about robustness. We found latency in Manaus of 200 milliseconds to reach anywhere. Today, we have 60 milliseconds, and so it is the best way possible, taking into consideration that there are different pieces of equipment there in the middle. And the fibers, what was done.
Nós queremos a 319, mas não podemos esperar. Sobre a questão da proximidade com o conteúdo,
so in terms of content proximity, we have a project called Open CDN. It's also located in Manaus. It was the second capital to have it installed. And so we have our infrastructure. Moreira's team has made different efforts to connect small providers, PCDN. So we have all of the boxes there, and that significantly decreased latency for the region. The IP clinic is also the best PICs available in Manaus, so we're trying to connect. And this is not advertisement. We've connected providers for free. We've made all efforts to decrease our cost. There are different components regarding Starlink, and this is my last answer, which I will share with the other ones. The need of connectivity is what makes us use it. And if we are to discuss national sovereignty, we should have another panel altogether. And Flavio's here. I really like him. We can talk to you later, like some 10 minutes on the point of view of digital sovereignty, national sovereignty, digital inclusion, and significant connectivity, to talk about the impact of having or not Starlink available. Well, first of all, I will talk about the North program, the so-called Connected North Region program. It absorbed the Connected Amazon project, and in this round that they are discussing now, we have Manaus and Cachoeira. And in 2020, when the Communication Ministry discussed it, and it's very important to mention that this program was designed and it was going to connect the two cities. But the Army, when things were concluded and when the implementation of the Connected North program started, the Army provided the infrastructure for the Calha Norte region, and therefore 07 no longer existed. Because 07 was done by the Army, and that was removed from the program. Now we have renamed it. 07 is exactly the optic cable implemented by the Army, so they simply transferred it, and we hope to transfer it to operators so that they can operate and maintain it and optimize as well. So do we all have problems? Yes, it has to do with sustainability, and the Connected North program is recovering the Manaus areas, but that's not the route we were talking about. Now, regarding the Telebrás fibers, I'm not aware of optic cable access in the transmission lines. And we, of course, and that's very important, we used two fibers. We have a cooperation agreement with them. And so I use optic fibers, and the access was in 22, 23. They made a public offer with different fibers in the market where operators, providers did the same, and Embratel has been using it since Embraer started. You placed the optic cable, and so I'm not aware of it. Please forgive me for the use of the cable as mentioned. And so I think this is it. And Fortaleza Belém. It is NP. They had a negotiation with Arno, an energy company, which wasn't able to use the fiber. This is very important for the infrastructure. This was done with the energy company. It goes from PC, goes all the way to Bacabeira. We all know that operators and providers in general have terrestrial routes in roads that communicate the north and northeast, at least to the state of Pará. It's not abundant. There are different routes, including Brasília to Belém. I said Brasília Belém, but it's not Brasília Belém.
Então é isto, acho que a interligação.
So, in terms of the interconnection, I can mention something important. We had a partner, and Ayala Link has a cable from Fortaleza on Brazil and Europe, and now they're launching a cable, and it's not leaving the land station directly. And it goes to Cayenne, capital of the French Guianas. And so they say that it will be done by 26. And it's very close to Salinas, Bragança, the state of Pará, 200 kilometers from Belém. And that's very interesting. We're talking about a cable which goes from Pará all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And then from Belém and São Luís, and we have other cities in Piauí. And then Fortaleza. Precisa não, Paty. And then we have a firm project And part of the resource is from the French government. And then I had something else, but I forgot. I forgot what it was.
Eu vou responder a pergunta aqui do
Okay, I'm going to answer Carlos Lamarca's question and what they expect after the conclusion of the project. Improved connectivity, more stability. Mudei de ideia, tô ficando cansada. Melhor parar.
A drastic decrease in the latency to the whole population of the northern region. They are going to feel this latency reduction and quality improvement. Then someone talked about protection of infrastructure and telco. So this is a challenge which is being faced in Brazil, this telecom infrastructure attacks, and that, it's up to our country. Somehow the state is not able to control organized crime, and that is growing. I've spoken to some state representatives, including Anatel, and the best scenario was to have a federal law, similarly to the United States, where they have a federal law to protect their post office system. In the US, you find lots of packages and parcels in front of someone's door, and no one will grab a package or open any post, any mail. If you would have a federal law protection and we would turn that into any type of telecom attack, that would represent a reduction in the number of incidents in the network sequestration and also the uptake of the network by organized crime. Why don't we protect cables, underwater cables? So far, we human beings have a huge enemy, which is nature. We are not able to domain nature. We had domained agriculture, a little bit of the airspace. It's not an enemy, okay? How can we say that nature is an enemy? It's a way to domain nature in our favor. And the Infovia project shows how to domain the Amazon River to install telecom infrastructure. This is a learning curve. Thank you.
O Lucas, comentou sobre os desafios ambientais.
Lucas mentioned environmental challenges. BR 319, I mean, all of the work that companies they have to do, they have to comply with environmental law, especially in the conservation areas such as the northern region and some others. Northeast, Ceará, they have their environmental conservation areas, and they all have to be strictly respected. To go over with fiber in the in the freeway 319, we had IBAMA's authorization. We used a very strong type of wood, which lasts years and years after, even after you remove it. You look at the wood, you think that is weak, but is one of the strongest ones in the world. That was taken from a registered and respected environmental area, and we took that wood by the rivers to place in the freeway 319. That freeway was invaded by the full vegetation. We did not pass through the fiber by the margin. We placed that in a zigzag position not to remove one single piece of tree or vegetation from the place, according to the environmental entity. The bridges that we built in the freeway 319, but have you built bridges? Yes, we have, because of this BR 319. BR means the freeway. It had to be kept and repaired after erosion. So we would build bridges to go from one side to another. They were also authorized. And to get environmental license, we needed also the social license of the community, because we had to go through with the fiber inside. And we had a meeting with the whole community.
A gente chegou, explicou o que era o
We
projeto.
explained about the project. We showed that there wouldn't be any other effect where they produce, they plant vegetables, fruits, benefiting from the fertilization in the region. And we explained the whole project that there would not be affecting anybody else or anywhere. And we said, we're going to even allow internet in the schools. We're going to make that available. But how about those posts? Can't we have electric energy in the posts? Well, we think that what they need for that time is internet at schools. I know that they do need, and I know about its importance, but they said, can't we also have electric energy, please? And instead of getting the most linear post route and the shortest one, we had to go over the longest one, so the posts would be closer to the households of the community. And then we placed the posts exactly where we were told to as part of an energy project. And today, Ilha da Machetaria, that's the name of the island, and that was 10 years ago, it was totally lightened up by this program Light to Everyone. But that's it. We do need to do anything respecting environment. Yes, indeed. And we have to win with intelligence, creativity, engineering, and diversity is much more, it's more than important, it's about everything. Okay. Davi, would you like to answer anything about ETICE? Anything else to say? As a matter of fact, I'd like to thank for the compliment for ETICE. As a governmental entity, we have a huge responsibility, which is to allow connectivity and technology to our population. So that's it. Thank you again for the opportunity. Wonderful. I would like to thank you all for your time and participation. It was a great discussion. Big round of applause.
Obrigado, gente. Foi
Thank you.
Painel excelente.
That was a great panel. And we are concluding our morning session. We had some panels which were rather long with heavy, dense topics, but all of them very significant for internet infrastructure. The afternoon session will be a little bit different. We are going to have more talks, shorter panels. We are going to have Eduardo and Pedro talking about PPT in the IX communities, an overview of submarine cables, and then a very interesting case about the use of AI with Francisco from RNP. Fabio from IX.br will let us know about the implementation of the segment routing. Roger from measurements team will throw some novelties about measurement systems to providers, and Claudine from Global and John, they are going to talk about streamings, and we are going to close the day with beer, gear, and peer as a happy hour celebration. So,
que foi feito aqui durante o painel.
During the panel, Josias was saying that he would talk for 10 minutes with Flávia, so benefit during lunchtime from our panelists, speakers, and sponsors to allow more interaction. In the afternoon session, you have a chance to do that. Lunch will be served in the premises, and you are all invited to have lunch with us. We are going to have a coffee break in the afternoon session. We are going to be the beer, gear, and peer by the end of the day, where you will have a chance to interact, to do some networking with all the participants. Don't refrain from visiting our exhibitors. They are our sponsors. Connect, IM, ZM, SAG Networks, Vital, and IX.br in the next room. Lunch will be served on the first floor. On your way out, you are going to get a voucher. This is a voucher for our internal control. There is enough to everyone. Don't leave the room without getting your lunch voucher. And then you are going to give that to the waiter when you go to the first floor. So go down one floor, please. And leave slowly. Don't worry. We have enough vouchers to everyone. For those who had to join us online, thank you for your time and participation. So I hope you get back in the afternoon. And the afternoon link is different from this one where you are connected right now. And we are going to be back at 2 o'clock sharp, okay? Thank you. See you soon. Bye.